This could be one of the major turning points that we look back on in 6 months' time and think, why didn't we get into the market sooner? Why didn't we invest more into the markets? And how did we not see it at the time? I think right now is probably one of the most pivotal times in this stage of the cycle, just like I talked about just over 12 months ago when we looked at that March 2023 low. That was a major, critical, pivotal point in the markets before they took off and never saw $20,000 again. So I know I'm hyping this up a little bit at this point, but I really want to emphasize this particular stage of the market. And what better way to do that than begin with a quote from our game theory expert, Warren Buffett. A bull market is like sex. It feels best just before it ends. So if you've been looking for sex advice and trading advice, look no further than the legend Warren Buffett. He somehow managed to have a wife and a girlfriend for all these years. I guess he knows a thing or two, right? So we've got heaps to get through in today's video. I think it's one of the most pivotal points that we see in the market, but there are disclaimers that come with this. So make sure you stick around for the video, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you are new here. We are your home of macro cycle analysis, just like one of our viewers have been watching us for quite some time. These are the best reviews, I think. Obviously, it's got a good ring here for myself, but I'll get to that later in the video. Home of macro cycle analysis, Bitcoin, crypto, stock markets, and of course, the real estate cycle. You guys know the deal. Couple of big links that I've got talking about a way you can trade with us for free during this macro stage, macro bull market that we got coming up. I'll talk about that in just a moment. But as I said, the bull market is like sex. It feels best just before it ends. And I guess I want to take this opportunity to potentially say goodbye to a lot of people as we lead into this next stage. When it gets into that raging bull market, as he says here, it's like sex just before it ends. People are so excited by the bull market. And when I talk about saying goodbye, it's about goodbye around having deep conversations about how to profitably trade the markets. When you get into these peaks, like we saw in March, just over 3 months ago, having these sorts of real conversations with you guys to explain how the markets work and how we can best make use of them, they just go out the window. For some reason, people are blindsided. They're jerking off to all sorts of bullshit altcoins. They have no idea what they're doing in the market, nor do they have a plan, and it feels best just before it ends. And at the end of the day, it rolls over and they think, why the hell did I screw it up so bad at the peak? So I've talked about that a lot. I'm trying to put as much emphasis as I can around how pivotal I think this point in the market is. So less of my ranting. Let's get on with the agenda for this video. Most important day of the cycle. As you know, it was the 30th of June yesterday. It's closed out and we are now into the second half of 2024, which means we have quarter 3 and quarter 4 to get through in this cycle of 2024. And then we get into 2025. So I think there's some pretty big pivotal timeframes coming up in this cycle for Bitcoin, for cryptos, and of course, as I said, the stock market and the real estate cycle. Things have been up. So this is our agenda for today. Bitcoin market sentiment. You guys asked me about where I think it is. I'll cover that as well. Bitcoin end of cycle prediction, Bitcoin left or right translated cycle. We've gone through these many times, so I will cover these quite quickly. And if you do want to know more about it, of course, stick around on the channel. And Ethereum is up, end of cycle as well. Altcoin season, so looking at some more macro timeframes here. And I might even touch on Solana as well, and then an Ethereum versus Solana example. Disclaimer, the stock markets and the election year as well. So the main thing I try to do with my own trading and what I'm sharing with you guys here is put the probabilities in my favor as much as I possibly can by analyzing the markets, going through history, and then giving myself a forecast on how I can trade the markets. And so I'm not going to get everything right, nor should anyone get everything right. It's the markets at the end of the day. It's very hard to predict the markets. But if you can do this more often than not, or if you do it less often than not, but your winners far outweigh your losers, then you're still going to win. That just means maybe you win 3 times out of 10, but when you win 5 to 1. But when you lose, maybe it's just half to 1. So you're just losing sort of 50% of that position. That might be getting a little bit too technical. The main thing is we're here to look at the most important day of the cycle as we head into the second half of the year of 2024. So let's have a look. Let's start from the bottom here. Disclaimer, stock markets, election year. We're in this election year, 2024, and we're in this summertime trading period for the stock markets. Does that mean that Bitcoin and cryptos can't pump? Of course not. We've seen it before. But as I said, it's a disclaimer. Let's just remind ourselves where we currently sit in the cycle. And over quick numbers there, what's that, about 60 something years or 60 or 70 years. And this one here is about 40, 45 years of history. You can see the summertime period where sometimes the markets just take a little bit of time to cool off after some significant moves earlier in the year. But does this always happen, as Ryan's pointed out? Well, that's not always the case in years where there are 20 or more all-time highs at the midpoint of the year. So this video is very much focused on the midpoint and then turning over into the second half of the year. You can see S&P 500 after 20 or more all-time highs. These are the years, so you've got plenty of data points to have a look at. You've got rest of the year, full year, next 3 months, percentage higher, 2 out of 3 times, so not the greatest return here in the next 3 months, which to me is similar to the summertime period, which our friend Seth here has posted about on X. So looking over the whole 6 months, there is potential for this summer period to be a little bit more unstable than some of the clearer runs that we've seen earlier in the year for the stock markets. Having said that, the 6-month period, so the 2 quarters now, doesn't seem to be so bad when you look at it over this whole year. And 100% of the time through these data points, it's come out to be a positive year, and pretty damn positive. The worst one was 1987. But if you recall from 1987, that was that Black Monday. Market crashed in October by 50% over the weekend. Huge. Worse than cryptocurrency. Well, you could be on par, right? And that's the stock market, and it still recovered to be a green year that year. So that's important to note. Not going to be a straight up ride, at least from what I can see. But overall, I think it's going to be a green end of the year. We're in the winner's curse phase. Now we're in the real estate cycle, putting this all together for the big stretches here. Winner's curse phase of the cycle. The last couple of years, maybe a few years, depending on which market we're looking at. Stock market's going to be slightly different to the real estate market. That's what this is about. But overall, there's going to be a lot of hype in the market, at least what I can see. And so I think that's going to spill over into Bitcoin and cryptos, and then you're going to have it in collectibles and all sorts of crap that people think is going to be the next greatest thing that they can store some value in. Their watches and, I don't know, some other garbage that they like to buy. I don't know, just crap that people like to buy. They think it's got value in it. Then all of a sudden they see the prices tank 50, 60, 70%. Yes, watches can go up and cars can go up, but they can also crash pretty damn hard as well. You'd invest in whatever you want to. That's a key symptom of the winner's curse phase. So this next couple of years, that's what we will see. And people will start to believe that these assets that they hold can never go down in value. It's a clear winner's curse phase. This has happened throughout history. This is all the times in history that it's happened over and over and over again. And whatever was valuable in the run-up in the peaks of the 1980s was maybe different to 2007, was maybe different to 1972-ish area, right, when you get into those peaks, but it's the same thing over and over again. So long term, that's where we're looking at over the next few years. What does that look like for the S&P 500? Well, let's have a look at it on a 6-monthly basis and also an annual basis as well. So the real big macro views here. We talked about the shorter term. It can be a little bit choppy based on what we've seen there, but I want to look at the longer term here. So don't mix this up with, oh, tomorrow the market dumps by 2%. It's all wrong. It's going to take 6 months, just like the last period took 6 months. We're in an incomplete 6-monthly period now, which is just over here. But we'll look at this on the annual as well, on the yearly. Essentially, red, green, red, that's for the annuals. In terms of the 6-month periods, you can see through the swing chart here, typically within a swing, you're going to see pretty long stretches of green in the 6-monthly chart. And we're only currently 3 6-month periods in to this particular swing. That is green here, but that's the bottom of the swing. So forget that. We're not looking at colors just yet. You can see the swings, the amount of swings into the previous peak in 2007. You had a tiny correction here when you look at the lows, very, very close to the same price, and then it took off for another 6 bars. So 6 months of 6 bars. That equals in time frames, 6 by 6 is 36, so about 3 years there. And where does that take us from this low? Let's go out to 6 bars. Takes us to, we've got to look out for some time in the second half of 2025. So not saying that that's the end of the run, but I think it's important to have a look at how the market is performing towards the end of 2025. Does it have more legs to go into that peak? You can see into the dot-com bubble, that was 12 6-monthly bars. So basically 6 years straight up. 6 freaking years. Can you believe that? And just prior to that tiny little correction here, that had a 7 bar period up. So that's again 3.5 years. So 3.5 years, tiny pullback, and then 6 years up. So major, major moves. Now we've had a pretty damn long time up already. So I'm not trying to suggest that we're going to get another 12 6-month period. So call it 6 years. But this market, or the stock markets, can go on pretty significant runs, especially when we're in our winner's curse phase as well. So again, there's not really many signs pointing to the markets having to collapse. Let's have a look at the end of the year as well. We're in a green year so far. And again, I still hear some calls of people saying that the markets are going to collapse. I can't see that happening, especially when I look at history all the way back to the 60s and even the Second World War. You name another person who goes back to the Second World War for history, and some people think it's all different this time because there's so much more money printing and it's all different. I mean, I can't help that. I'm just doing my own analysis, and hopefully you guys are winning with it as well, or doing your own research on top of it and doing even better. That would be the best thing that I can hope for. So anyway, just look at the years here. Red, green, red. The year ending in red, then followed by a green. Do you ever see another red year after that? I had to go back to the 1960s to get a red year, a green year, then a red year. And then I had to go back to post-World War II to get a red year, a green year, and a red year. Note in these times, the market barely went below those prices, if at all. But now we find ourselves pretty far up. So I think there's more of a chance, a much, much bigger chance of there being another green year or ending out this year in green, which I think is going to flow over into Bitcoin and cryptos as well. Let's get on with the show and have a look at some Bitcoin, market sentiment, end of cycle predictions, etc. You may have seen me post about this before. This happened in March. So coming up now to 4 months around the market not going to another new all-time high based on one of our signals that we saw there, essentially around 4 to 6 months underneath the all-time high. That is what I looked at in March. And so far, we're now just under 2 weeks away from hitting this time frame target, meaning Bitcoin's price was underneath the old all-time high for that period. And I said many, many times, it doesn't signal that the top is in, and that many people were probably not prepared for how long the price would stay underneath the old all-time high, being roughly $74,000. So now that we've recapped that, we're in this period now. We're in Q3, which is where I believe this signal should reverse now, and we start to see higher prices from BTC or breaking out of the all-time high. So keep in mind, we need to keep following the chart. Maybe it goes 6.5 months. Maybe it goes 7 months. The main point here is that it stayed underneath the all-time high. I think it's given people, and for my own portfolios, many opportunities to continue to consolidate, to accumulate in these markets. So that's what I'm seeing in the short term. With the 58K higher low last week, Bitcoin looks to be signaling that our TIA 3-day down signal and the 4 to 6 month window is coming to an end in Q3. And then try to make a little dad joke here. You guys get the point. But yeah, some pretty good responses here from you guys who have been following for quite some time. I always appreciate you guys that are following along and putting this to the test yourself. You're seeing how the markets are working, and you're beginning to see how the signals and the back testing and the analysis and the trading rules all apply to the markets. So if you can take this for yourself, back test it, do your own research, make it a plan that works for you, all the better. More power to you. let's move forward. Now, if you do want to learn more about that, or you do want to do some short-term trading, we have the Ultimate Trader Accelerator starting now. Get your free entry here. The link will be in the top of the video description. This one is about trading the markets short-term or medium-term. If you want to get onto that daily or that weekly time frame, do so now. It is a new course that we're offering to everyone that you can get onto free. So link is in the video description. Email, make your account there, and then you'll be on board with that. You will need to use the links in the video description. Our partners here, Bybit, Bluffin, and CoinCatch, and that's it. Absolutely free. Let's carry on with the rest of the video. We've got the ETFs to get through, so end of cycle and market sentiment. ETF flows, I wanted to recheck this as we saw the most amount of ETF outflows coming at the bottom yet again. So here it is, BTC, peak outflows at that particular low. It's been a significant low, so it's worked relatively well, and it was negative 2.9, so 2,900 outflows of BTC. Now, the same thing happened for the peaks, where we saw massive inflows at the peaks there, 12,600 coming in. And so whenever someone is talking about all these people buying up, just be aware of where it sits relative to the previous data. 12,600 was obviously a ridiculous number compared to anything that happened in the past. It was the fourth highest inflows coming in. And then we look at 2.9 going out, it was equal to or similar to the last several weeks, and one of the most that had happened since the May low. Really, I use this as a contrarian indicator that if people are buying up at some of the biggest levels that you've ever seen, it might mean that it's around a top or the top. And as this cycle goes on, these numbers are probably going to get larger. You're probably going to see more inflows, which will then call different peaks, and more outflows when it gets scary. People start to dump. So I have to pay attention to this because I think these numbers will eventually change. It's not always going to be 3,000 outflows is going to call the bottom, because there's going to be far more volatility as we lead into the winner's curse. More people coming in, more craziness going on. So that's Bitcoin and the flows. Let's get on to the market sentiment. So we've just had another day here at neutral, and it seems like we're turning a corner here with a reset of the market sentiment. Good signs for the crypto market, especially if you're here now and not in maybe 6 months' time, which I think in 6 months you're going to see the prices higher, or at least for BTC by the end of the year. But anyway, reset of the market sentiment seems to be in the process. Is it the low? We need to wait and see for the price now. So the price needs to get past 65,200. So this is just a quick look at the short term before I get back into the longer term, the monthlies, quarterlies, 6 monthlies as well. And in terms of that last week that we got, so far it's a high low, still in a trading range, so it's still quite difficult to tell. But this red box is the 4 to 6 month window. If it's within that exact time frame, I expect to see a new all-time high within this particular box here. So it's basically mid-July to about early to mid-September. So let's see how we carry on from that. But first of all, Bitcoin's got to get back above $65,200. It's the halfway point between this entire range. Bit to do before we get to that point. Let's take a look at the psychology of a market, around that market sentiment. I've talked about it being in disbelief, and in March, I thought maybe we were getting to this sort of hope to optimism, but it's when the market pulls back that it gives you that understanding of where we probably are in the cycle. You need to see the polarity, and you need to see how the opposite side of the fence reacts to what's going on in the market at the time. And on this decline from March to May, and these little declines in between, you can see the pullbacks in May, the pullbacks in June, and this most recent one in June, the sentiment felt more like a disbelief pullback. This rally will fail like others. Many, not all, but many were still talking about the possibility of the market collapsing. And personally, I can't see that happening from this point, just based on what I've looked at in the markets over the last, since the low, so a year and a half. But yeah, there was still enough people to believe that it could crash, which led me to believe that maybe we're not in these other 4 yet, but I think we'll get there. So it's probably somewhere around disbelief to hope. And that correction allowed us to see where we are. as we go up in the market, these ones don't really have any wording on what the corrections look and feel like, which is probably due to the volatility and the fear from the guys who get in late, and they're basically just trying to get out just in case it goes further so they can buy up lower. So whatever you want to call that, that's what it will be. It's the guys who try to sell off when it's already at a bottom because they think it's going to go a little bit lower so they can buy up again and it goes higher. But yeah, I think we've got this stage still to go. Optimism, belief, thrill, euphoria over the next 6 to 18 months. So a time frame of roughly 6 to 18 months. Okay, that brings us over into the monthly chart of BTC. And the month finally closed. We had a lot of videos, or 2 to 3 videos on the channel last week. Go and check those out. I won't repeat all of the analysis here. Otherwise, we'll be here for over 40 minutes. So anyway, monthly looks pretty good. The close that we now have was at 62,700. So basically the third highest monthly close in history, and it goes above all of the previous bull market's tops. So it still seems like Bitcoin is trying to consolidate above the previous old all-time highs, which eventually over the coming weeks or maybe even months, quarter 3, quarter 4, maybe, will eventually push us out to new all-time highs. And if that's the case, this big wind-up is going to shock many, many people. Look at what happened when Bitcoin wound up for about 7 months last time, March to the breakout in October. A big wind-up of 7 months caused that huge move from 25K to 74K. Not saying it has to do the exact same percentages. I'm just talking about some significant move that pushes price pretty damn hard. Now, I don't know, honestly, if it's going to be a straight line like it was in the last cycle. It could be a nice big pump up, a pullback, and then it just takes off again. But as I said in the intro, when we get into that stage, it's kind of like that goodbye to the sane times, getting to talk to you guys, and then we get into the insane times. So make sure you got your insane caps on. If you have to, post this on your walls. Warren Buffett's going to help you with sexual advice. He's going to help you with trading advice. He's going to help you with everything, okay? So if you get in those times, just remember the bull market's like sex. It feels best just before it ends. Don't go crazy when we get into those ridiculous peaks. So I've got Ethereum, Solana, and the total cryptocurrency market cap to get through. And so Ethereum actually looks very, very interesting. So BTC, just looking at the greens and the reds in terms of the cycles now, you've got the 2013 top, 2017 top, 2021 top. At the moment, I think we are very much in this sort of cycle, the 2015 to 2017. You can see it's been relatively orderly, and this is something we've been tracking for many, many months now. You've got the quarters. You've got 2 red quarters now and 4 green quarters. Look at the beginning of the cycle here for 2017. So basically through 2015 and 2016, a green, a red, a green, a red, a green, a red. It was very, very orderly. And then you got this big blow-off move in the last few quarters. If that is to occur again or similar, so not exactly the same, it might have a nice big stretch of 3, 4, maybe 5 quarters of green. There is going to be significant pullbacks, and because it's going straight up and the emotions are there, any sort of pullbacks, like it saw in that cycle there, pullbacks of 20, 30% is still going to be ridiculous. People will think that the market is going to collapse, but try to keep your head about you. There is a possibility of a 5 green quarter streak. Look at the 2021 cycle peak, 1, 2, 3, 4 green, a quick dump of a red, and then another couple of greens. And then you can go back to the 2013 peak, and that was multiple greens, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 greens. Yeah, it took a little while to get going, but maybe that's what happens over this quarter, quarter 3. If it takes a little while to get going, that is potentially more energy built up for that last peak. And again, I come back to this, more energy built up for that last peak. I did have a few more dad jokes left in me. Things are looking relatively good. It's looking similar to the 2017 peak. Let's have a look at it on the 6 monthly swings here now and the 6 monthly bars. The 2017 peak had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 green in a row. The 2013 peak, starting from 2010, 1, 2, and then a quick pullback. These bars were massive, 5,000%, 5,000%, and then a pullback. And then you had 1, 2, 3, 4 green. So 4 lots of 6 months being 2 years. And then the only one that was slightly different to it was 2021 peak. So a green, a red, a green, and then you basically went on for 4 greens in a row. So 5 greens, 4 greens in a row, 4 greens in a row. Maybe at some point there's going to be a red in here, but there could also be a time where it just cools off for a moment in the greens. You've got 3 cooling off here, and so far we got 3 cooling off when you look at it on a logarithmic scale. Obviously, on a linear scale, it doesn't look like it's cooled off whatsoever. It's going to be hard to tell. We're trying to forecast months and months ahead, but again, just looking at what we've got in the previous cycles, there could be a couple of months of pretty significant moves. And it's shown, a couple of bars, which are basically a year of pretty significant moves. And if that's the case, that could take us out easily into 2025, whether it's going to be the first half or the second half. Again, you're trying to ask me to predict a year in advance. All I can see is that I think it's going to be green, and I think we've got an opportunity now. How you trade that coming out into 2025 is going to be on you, but I'm going to do my best, and I'll be able to record that with you here on the channel. So that's your reminder to subscribe right now. So things are looking positive over the next 6 months. It will get volatile, and people will probably believe that the cycle's over. Let's have a look at total 3. Pretty similar to Bitcoin. We don't have too much data to work with here. There is, I think it was 12 of these bars to the peak. There it is. And we're currently, that was the previous cycle, we're currently just into the 7th. So basically halfway through this point. Now into that final peak of altcoins, it was basically green after green after green, pretty severe pullback just before the end. And then the peak really didn't give you that much more gains. This time in the market is probably the area that is going to set you up for that last stage of the cycle. This one looks very interesting. You've got the 6 monthly bars here. It was basically 5 down. And again, we did 5 down. It's not confirmed yet, but if it's similar to that and it's closing above the 50% level, the major 50% level, which is very, very important on a macro time frame here, ETH is looking pretty hot. Now, this is ETH versus BTC. So it's looking very hot versus BTC. Against altcoins, of course, you're going to make much bigger gains on some other shit random coin that comes out in the next sort of 3 to 6 months. But if you want to play it more conservatively, check out the chart here. So ETH BTC, providing it holds, there's your disclaimer, providing it holds above 50%, this could be a relatively good run for ETH over the coming 6 to 12, maybe even 18 months. So that's the 6 monthly on ETH. Into the peak, it had another 4 bars. So from this low, 4 bars takes it out to the first half of 2026. The first half of 2026. I find that pretty incredible if it is able to do that. That's a pretty long time. That 18 months away for that peak. Remember, this is ETH BTC. Doesn't mean ETH USD will also hold that level, like some of the biggest prices, right? But again, that sort of gives us that time frame now, probably out to end of 2025 for something big. So that second half of 2025 is probably going to be pretty unreal, I hope, based on what I can see here. ETH USD. We're looking at ETH USD on the quarterly chart here. And the quarters so far looking relatively on track, similar to previous cycles. We haven't seen too much craziness yet from ETH. It's holding up. The swing charts are up. And if it's able to break out of these levels from the tops at 4K, and then of course the all-time high roughly around 5K, then you can see the stretches of greens in the quarters that basically blow the market away. So that's why I think this is also got some legs in it when it comes to ETH BTC. ETH USD looks like it's got a fair bit of room to the upside to move. How many quarters? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 into that peak from the low. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 into that peak. And in terms of our swings at the moment, let's go out about 7. Takes us into, again, Q3 of 2025. So there's a bit of room to move there if it gets through these tops. What does that mean to Solana? Well, let's look at Solana USD first, and then I'll compare it to ETH. Solana USD had a pretty decent close out yesterday. It got above the 50% level, so that major 50%, and it's above the 50% of this current move. It's put in higher lows this entire time, especially when I talked about altcoins putting in higher lows in April from that significant dump. They put in higher lows. Solana has also done the same thing here. Above the 50% is looking good. That's on the weekly. 6 monthly, let's turn that off. You've got 3 of the 6 monthly bars up so far. And in terms of the quarters, yeah, you've had a nice red. So something to reset the hype. And it's reset the hype. And in doing so, has also managed to close above the 50%, which is very important, and then the other 50%. So things are looking good. Let's have a look at ETH against Solana. Which one should we be holding? Well, if you're that black and white, if you're that binary, if you identify as Solana, then you'll want to be holding Solana when it breaks down on this chart, because that means it's going to be more valuable than ETH, and you're going to need more ETH to buy Solana. So therefore, Solana is going to be a better investment than Ethereum. That doesn't mean that they're going to be better against their USD values. It just means it's better hold than Ethereum. And as we can see from this entire cycle, Solana has been the better hold than Ethereum. However, if you identify as ETH or any sorts of ETH binaries, then you want to see it as it breaks through this level here. So about 30, 31 on the reading here. So that essentially means 1 ETH will buy you 31 Solana. And if this starts to go up, well, then your 1 ETH is buying more Solana. It could be buying 50 Solana. It could be buying 60 Sol. I should be saying Sol, not Solana. It could be buying 70 Sol, and so on and so forth. If, of course, it goes down and you're identified as Sol, then you're only going to need 20 Sol to buy 1 ETH. And you're only going to need 10 Sol to buy 1 ETH. And you can start to see that value really increase for Solana. So right now, there's still not enough to decide which way your identification should be, because now it's stuck in a trading range. This is the transitional period. Are you going to identify as Sol? Are you going to identify as ETH? That's probably a good place to let me know in the comment section. Pin comment, do you identify as ETH or do you identify as Sol? Or do you need a little more information before you can make that transition? I'll leave it there on one of my best dad jokes I've had in a few days because I've been unwell over the weekend. You know the deal. Links in the video description. This is for our free new course, the Ultimate Trader Accelerator. Get on board with that. Use the links down here for Bybit, Bluffin, or CoinCatch. Like and subscribe. I'll see you guys back here at the next video. Until then, take care and peace out. The balloons are for my dad jokes.